Fundamentals of Programming and Computer Science at Carnegie Mellon University. The name of my project is FrankItIn, and this is a plagiarism checker based heavily off the bag of words model. Most plagiarism checkers today eschew a pure word-based analysis, which means that at least the online ones are pretty easy to beat. So this one focuses solely on that to catch the little edits through things like counts of words and inverse term frequency. So let's run this thing, see what we get. As you can see, we don't have anything so far, because what it's doing right now is it's making the directory that we're going to check our input against. To do this, it's going into the folder that we have on board, works directory, looping through the name of each author, and then the files that are in there. That's just something I used for testing purposes. It's looping through that. But then to get the online ones, it uses this funky thing called Beautiful Soup from BS4. And the BS4 you can also find right here for those interested. What it's doing is it's taking the HTML code of a website passed as a string, and it's parsing through it. Because everything after the href equals is actually the suffix of a URL. And through basic URL manipulation, you can go to that URL, read its contents, and then get the author from this by thing. So there's the parser function somewhere. The parser function right here that it makes the directory from online. Also, if you notice this pool.map thing, it was taking forever, so I used 12 threads through the multiprocessing and multiprocessing.dummy module to make it happen. And now it's ready to go. Before we go further, there's the information right here with how the workso checks, the modules I used, the websites I used for text. I'll get to steps 5 through 7 later. Big thank you to these people. They helped me a lot through it all, and I wouldn't have got it done without them. And just basic general tips. The biggest thing is probably to make sure all files are in .txt format. This program only reads UTF-8 encoded files and won't be able to read anything else. So please don't mess with it like that. We have analyzed. We can either input text or we can input a file. Let's just see what this does. This is just the standard entry tkinter entry widget. And yes, I can type in it, but let's not do that. Let's get something a bit more robust. So get rid of that. Go back. Also a quick note, for my button classes, I didn't use the entry widget. I simply drew a button on the screen with a method at isCalled. What this does is simply reports if the event is within it. That made it really easy for navigation and meant that I didn't have to use object-oriented programming as much. So let's just input the file. And then we get our thing. Let's get some Dr. Seuss, green eggs and ham. And I would like to analyze it. So I click this big red button. What it's doing now is it's going through all of the works in our directory, all those lists of words that we made through the work object. It's hashing all of them, and then it's making segments out of it called chunks, based on the divisibility of the hash values. What this does, it allows for the chunks to be compared against a larger list of words through a three-pronged test. The first thing is how many of the elements in the chunk actually match. For clarity purposes, I filtered out the top 10% most common words. I did this through inverse term frequency, which you can see in my documentation if you so please. After that, I checked to see if enough of them matched, if 3/4 of them matched, and then I checked to make sure that the indices of each element were within a sufficient distance of each other. What this means is that we don't have one word on chapter 1, word 1, and the next word in the sequence at the very end of the novel. It means they have to be within a certain distance of one another. And as you can see right here, we plagiarized approximately 90% of it. This is because there was a fairly large margin of error given the short length of green eggs and ham and the fact that it only uses 50